Mm. That's not good. That's not going to. Oh, this is interesting. I'll give it a couple more minutes. I hope it's a nice day where you are. It's beautiful here. Aha! Hi there. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes. I'm just building something to show you in a minute. Okay. Oh, amazing. And a lawnmower. I hope you can't hear that. I hope it's not too noisy. Martin. Hello. Hello everyone. I'm hoping it's not too noisy. Someone's just decided to mow their lawn, which is perfect timing. I'm just going to wait for one more minute. And I'm going to ask Martin if he'll go and ask my neighbours to stop mowing their lawn. Okay. This is quite strange, as it feels like I'm just sitting here talking to myself in the garden. I can see there's a couple more people. Okay, a few more. I hope you're all having a nice day at home today. Aha, hello, Emily. Okay. Right then, it's 2 o'clock. Let's go. So, hello. Welcome to today's Earth Live lesson. My name's Sue and I work for the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. We are the largest nature conservation charity in Europe. Oh good, I'm glad you can hear me. The video looks a bit jerky to me, so I hope it's okay for you. Royal Society for Protection of Birds is a nature conservation organisation, and we look after nature reserves across the UK. We also do lots of campaigning and political work to try and get better policies and better laws to protect nature. We do lots of education and fun activities and events for families to come and explore nature. And we also work with farmers to try and make wildlife more friendly, farming more wildlife friendly. We do a lot of science, a lot of surveys. We do the Big Garden Bird Watch every year in the UK. And that helps us to monitor the bird populations over time in the UK. It's a great piece of citizen science. We're also a founder member of BirdLife International, which is a network of international conservation organisations all over the world who all help each other to look after nature where they are. So that's the RSPB. The project that I work on is based here in Cardiff, and it's called Giving Nature a Home in Cardiff. And it's a partnership between Cardiff Council, Buglife Cymru and RSPB. And we do lots of education. We go to schools and do outdoor education sessions. We run lots of fun public activities and events. We're also working with community groups to make habitats for pollinators across the city. And my particular role on the project is to look after the volunteers. Now, we've got loads of amazing volunteers who donate their time and their skills to help us to do the work that we do. And we couldn't do it without them. They're amazing. So, where are we? Well, I'll show you this map, okay? Sorry, Scotland, I don't know what happened, but Scotland seems to be missing. But here's Wales, and Cardiff is just here. So we're just on the coast there in the south of Wales. Now then, today we're going to talk about ecosystems. And we're going to look at some examples that you might be able to find and explore in your garden. But first, let's have a think about what an ecosystem is. So an ecosystem is a community of organisms in their environment. And they're all interconnected. And there's a movement of energy and nutrients throughout that ecosystem amongst all the different members of that community. And I'm going to attempt to show you my very homemade, simple model of an ecosystem. So here we are. Here's the ecosystem. And what I will do is I've got your questions coming through and I'll put some time in at the end to see if I can answer them. Okay, here's our ecosystem. So we're looking at land-based ecosystems today. So the basis of our ecosystem, the environment, is the soil. Along the bottom here, you can see the soil. And the soil is full of nutrients and minerals. That provides something for the plants to grow on. So the plants, I can just see that the writing has gone backwards on here, which is a bit annoying. Let's see if I can switch that round. No. Okay. So our plants then are growing in our soil. And the plants are also, so they're taking up all the nutrients from the soil, and they're also taking their energy from the sun, and they're using the amazing process of photosynthesis to produce lots of food. So they produce these structures, these stems and leaves, and that produces food, lots of food. So they're a bit like an eco factory, and they're producing food for the herbivores. So these are animals that eat plants. So they're known as primary consumers because they're consuming plants, and the plants are the primary producers. So we've got our soil, our primary producers, and our primary consumers. So all these herbivores are busy munching away at plants, and they in turn are food for the carnivores. The carnivores are eating the herbivores, and they're known as secondary consumers because they're consuming the primary consumers. I hope you're still with me. Now, up here on top, we've got our apex predator. Now, our apex predator is consuming the carnivores, consuming the herbivores. So our apex predator is known as a tertiary consumer. Don't worry too much about that, but these are things you might hear or read if you read books about ecosystems or see diagrams. Now, you might notice that there's only one apex predator up here, and this whole structure is a bit like a pyramid. And that's kind of important. And what this represents is how much energy and nutrients it takes to feed an apex predator. So can anyone give me any examples of an apex predator? Can you think of any animals that are apex predators? So in this country, in the UK, we've got things like owls, and we've got stoats, and we've got foxes, and we've got lots of birds of prey. And these animals are apex predators. And you can see it takes a lot of nutrients and energy to keep that animal healthy, because each of the things beneath that apex predator also needs lots of nutrients and energy for each one of those animals. So you need a lot of stuff at the bottom and a lot of plants to feed all the herbivores, to feed all the carnivores, to feed our top predator. Now, how can we tell if an ecosystem is healthy? Well, generally, the rule is if there's a greater diversity and a great abundance of animals, then it's probably a healthy ecosystem. But you can also look for indicator species. So, for example, you might have a tawny owl, and that's our apex predator. And we know that the apex predator eats a lot of food, and so we know there must be enough stuff under it in the pyramid to support that animal. So that's a pretty good indicator that you must have lots of smaller animals for the owl to eat, and those animals must have some food, some plants to eat to sustain them too. So what if an ecosystem goes wrong? Well, it can go wrong in a number of ways. You might, for example, kill your apex predator, and then you've got an imbalance. You've got nothing eating the carnivores, and so you might end up with too many carnivores, and then you've got an imbalance in the ecosystem. You might also have too many apex predators, like cats, for example. We've got lots of cats all in one place. They might eat all of these animals, and eventually they'll eat themselves out of a home because they'll eat everything underneath them. So other ways it could go wrong. Well, we might use some pesticides, and we might kill off lots of bugs. So our bugs might be herbivores, they're eating plants and things. So we're going to use some pesticides and we're going to kill our bugs. Oh dear. So the animals that depended on those bugs for food have now gone. So that's a bit of a problem for our ecosystem. What else might we do? Well, we might use some herbicides. We might spray with weed killer. We might kill some plants that we don't particularly want. So, oh dear. So all the animals that depended on those plants now don't have any food. And then the last major way that an ecosystem can go wrong is if you destroy the soil. So if someone destroys the soil, everything on top collapses. So you can see that ecosystems are quite complicated and everything is interconnected. So if something happens to one part of the ecosystem, then that can cause problems for the rest of the components of the ecosystem. There's another way to think about this, which is a little bit easier when you're thinking about what you've got at home in your garden or what you've got in your school. And that's thinking about homes for nature, food for nature, not necessarily carrots, but food, and water, because all living things need homes, food, and water. So if you're trying to understand what ecosystems you have in your garden or your school, you can look, well, what homes do I have for nature? What places do I have that creatures could live? What places do I have for plants to live? Are the conditions right for them? What kind of food do I have? What sources of food? What kind of creatures am I feeding and what do they need to eat? And then lots of animals need water. Lots of animals reproduce in water. They lay their eggs in water, spend part of their lives in water. All the other animals also need it to drink. Some of them have a wash. So looking for sources of water and food and homes can give you an idea of whether you are likely to be able to produce a healthy ecosystem. Okay. What I thought we might do now is have a quick look around my garden and see if we can find some examples of homes, food and water, and see what that tells us about the ecosystem in my garden. And this is something you can do at home, and I'll show you how at the end. So let's very slowly and gently, because of my dodgy connection, have a look around. What have we got? Well, we've got some food here. I've got a bird feeder. I've got this hazel tree, which has leaves for things to eat, and it also produces nuts. We've got another tree here, a holly bush, which is a home for lots of little insects and things. I've got flowers, lots of flowers. Look at all these lovely flowers producing nectar for lots of pollinating insects, lots of flowers. What else can I find? Now here I've got some dead wood all around my flower bed, and this is fantastic habitat for all kinds of creatures like beetles and woodlice and ants and worms. Next time you find a piece of dead wood, gently roll it back and have a look underneath it and you'll see all kinds of stuff living in there. What else? We have my compost bin. Now, there's a lot of stuff in my compost bin and I've got some to show you in a minute. And then over here, we've got a pond, a little pond that I made last year. And you can see I've got some stones around the outside as well. And there's some more flowers. And there's my noisy neighbour. So, we've seen a few examples in my garden. So, your challenge is to go and look and see what you can find in yours. And what I want to do now is to just zoom in a little bit and have a look at the soil, which is the basis of our ecosystem. What is soil made of? Well, here's some ingredients of soil. So we've got some dead leaves, some dead plant material here. We've got some gravel, some stones, some minerals. So we've got minerals, dead plant material, and then we've got this. This is fungus here, eating away on this dead wood. And there's lots of fungi in the soil and it's really important. There are also lots of other animals and creatures living in the soil. And I'll show you some. So I've got some friends to show you from my compost heap. Now let's have a look what we've got in here. So here's some of the material that's gone in the compost bin. Here's a bit of an old parsnip and some bits of grass and some brown paper. Who's hiding? Oh. Here, this is a yellow cellar slug, and there's a little woodlouse crawling on there as well. And we've got, some lovely wiggly worms. Look at those. So these guys make soil, and they eat it and they help it break down. And the fungi and all the other bacteria and microbes munch away on all that stuff, and they break it down into this. And this is from the bottom of my compost heap. And here it's a bit like chocolate cake actually. It's quite squidgy. Doesn't smell of anything really, just soil. And there's a few more worms in there, but it's an amazing process, and you can do this at home. It's a really good way of dealing with food waste, and it's really interesting to watch a compost heap. And if you put your hands close to it, you'll feel the heat coming off it, and that's from all the microbes who are taking in oxygen and munching away on all the stuff in the compost heap and producing lots of heat. So that's how you can tell that it's working. Now, very quickly, there's one last ecosystem I want to show you, which is a pond. And I've brought a little bit of my pond in a glass here. It looks a bit yucky, doesn't it? I made it about 6 months ago, the pond, just from rainwater. And you can see now there's all this algae growing. So there's our plants. So we've got our water, which is our environment, and we've got our plants, our primary producers. And you probably can't see them, but whizzing around in here are lots of tiny weeny creatures who are herbivores, and they're feeding on the algae. And then there are also some skins from fly larvae, and so the fly larvae are eating those primary consumers. So we've got our secondary consumers, our carnivores have moved in as well. So we've got a whole ecosystem starting to build itself from scratch there, which again is quite an interesting thing you can watch in your garden. So I just want to finish off, because I'm nearly out of time. I just want to finish off then by saying it's really easy to have a go at making ecosystems in your garden. Get out there and have an explore and see what you can find. See what homes, food and water you can find. And if you can't find much, maybe it's time to have a go at making some ecosystems. People often ask me, how do I get a hedgehog in my garden? Well, here's some hedgehog poo that I found in my garden. So I know they're here. And I didn't get them from anywhere. They just came. And they came because I made sure there were lots of plants to feed lots of bugs. And the hedgehogs like to eat bugs. So if you create the right conditions, then life will turn up. And if you reduce the human pressures that they're under by not mowing your lawn so often, or not using chemicals in your garden, then you'll give a chance for life to flourish, and it'll be really exciting to watch. So the very last thing is that Lizzie asked me to say why I think science is so great. And really, I think it's just that science is all about curiosity. It's about asking questions and investigating and exploring. And if we don't do that, then we may as well be asleep. Science is so crucial to helping us understand the world. And the more we understand things, the better the decisions are that we make. So I'm going to just give you, this is our Facebook page for our project, Giving Nature a Home in Cardiff. And RSPB is also on Twitter. And here's our website here. And on the website under Fun and Learning, you can find all kinds of activities. I think I've linked to it from the description under here, the Wild Challenge, which tells you how to do things like making bird boxes and making compost heaps. So I'm going to have a really quick look at questions. I think I'm running over ever so slightly. Don't know. Okay. What plants you need to buy now to encourage bees and butterflies? You're in the Peak District. Well, so the best way to think about plants is about what wants to grow in your area, and you can get clues because it depends on the kind of soil you have and the kind of climate. So if you go out for a walk in the countryside on your daily exercise, if you can go out for a walk somewhere, or the next, once all this lockdown is lifted, you can go out and have a look around and just see what plants want to grow and what plants have flowers. And that will give you a clue about the kinds of things that you can grow. At the minute, there are lots of flowering bulbs and things. You can find all kinds of information like that actually on the Plant Life website. Plant Life is a really good organisation. Are humans apex? Good question. Well, that depends where we are. Obviously, bears, lions, polar bears, all those kinds of things could eat humans. If we've got a gun, then we become the apex predator. So it changes. Question from Celia. I have a bird box for my garden. How high should I put it and where should I put it? Good question. You should put it somewhere north facing so it's not going to get too hot in the sun because you don't want to cook your baby birds. And you also want to put it somewhere not too exposed. The birds need to be able to fly straight into it, but they also don't want everyone to be able to see where they're nesting. So a little bit hidden, but with a clear path to get into the hole. And I would say above head height, definitely above head height, because it needs to be high enough that cats and things can't get to it. I think that's it. I think I've overrun a little bit. Thank you very much for listening. Remember to have a look at our website. And don't forget, there's another live lesson tomorrow. So enjoy that. Have a great time exploring your garden. Bye-bye.